Like what you see here? Then be sure to subscribe to Jaguar Gator 8, a channel devoted to the history of college football. New videos drop twice a week. Click the card in the upper right corner or the link in the description to subscribe now. And now, on with our feature presentation.
This player right here is Tony Phillips, and all things considered, he had a very good career in Major League Baseball. After making his Major League debut with the Oakland A's in 1982, Phillips was able to successfully play this sport all the way until 1999, lasting nearly 2 decades in the show. In total, he played in 2,100 games, won a World Series with Oakland in 1989, got some MVP votes with the Detroit Tigers in 1993, got on some Hall of Fame ballots, led the American League in runs scored in 1992, led the American League in walks twice, finished inside the top 10 in times on base in the American League 7 times throughout the 90s, and had over 2,000 hits. While Phillips spent most of his time in Oakland and Detroit, and odds are, if you remember him today, you remember him as a member of one of those teams. He did play for some other teams in his career. He spent some time with the Anaheim Angels in 1997, the Toronto Blue Jays in 1998, and the New York Mets in 1998. But there was one other team that he was a member of, and that's this team right here that we're going to focus on today. Because in 1996, after playing the previous year with the then-named California Angels, he signed with the Chicago White Sox, with the goal of helping bring a World Series title to the team for the first time since 1917. And then, 1 month after signing, he retired, ending his Major League Baseball career for good. And then, 1 day after announcing his retirement, sure enough, he came back. It's an absolutely bizarre situation, where a guy announces his retirement and comes back a day later and says, "Never mind, I've changed my mind." But that's exactly what we're going to dive into today. Because even though Tony Phillips had a great career, this absolutely bizarre moment needs a deep dive. This is the story behind what has to be, considering the circumstances, the strangest retirement in the more than century-long history of the Chicago White Sox franchise. Before I talk about the decision that Phillips made, both in terms of retiring and then coming back immediately after, we need some context to understand, quite simply, why the White Sox signed Phillips in the first place, and why he wanted to continue his career at the age of 37. The year is 1995, and Tony Phillips is playing for this team right here, the California Angels, following a 1994 season with the Detroit Tigers, where he led the AL in plate appearances, and following a trade with Detroit in the offseason. And in 1995, Phillips was picking up right where he left off, as not only was he a great player, but he was just about universally loved. As the team's leadoff hitter, he provided a spark and an energy about him that the team didn't really have before. As Phillips said, "There's only one way I know how to play the game: hungry. You can't play emotionally dead. All I've got to do is bust my butt, go hard from first to third, and they're right behind me." Assistant General Manager Tim Meade said on Phillips, "Tony has given us exactly what we wanted when we made the deal: leadership and chemistry." And one writer even went as far as saying that Phillips was heaven sent and was indispensable, which shows you just how loved he was. On top of just bringing an attitude and a new fire to the Angels clubhouse that they hadn't really had before, Phillips was an awfully good ball player. During that 1995 season, he was near the top of the team in just about every major statistical category. Along with a solid .261 average, he led the team with 13 stolen bases, led the team with 643 plate appearances, was third on the team with 27 home runs, which was a career high for him, was third on the team with an on-base percentage of .394, and led the team with 113 walks, being the only player on the Angels to have over 100 walks. In fact, his 113 walks was the third most in the American League that season, only behind Edgar Martinez of the Seattle Mariners, who had 116, and Frank Thomas of the Chicago White Sox, who had 136. Even though the Angels kind of collapsed down the stretch and missed the playoffs, Phillips made a positive impression in that first season with the team. However, when 1996 rolled around, Phillips became a free agent and had a chance to make some money and play anywhere his heart desired. and he was going to be pursued by some clubs even despite his age. Not just because of his presence and strong play, but because of his versatility. In 1991, for instance, he became the first player ever to start at least 10 games at 5 different positions, which is what Phillips credits with helping him sustain this career of his in the majors. As Phillips said, "That versatility has been the forte of my success. It's helped keep me around. I've done everything but pitch and catch. I don't really care to catch, but if a manager or coach asks me to do something, I'll do it." And in 1996, the Chicago White Sox, needing some reinforcements after a poor 68-76-1 season, decided to sign Phillips. And to say that Phillips was thrilled about joining the White Sox, and in particular, playing with the Big Hurt, would be an understatement. As Phillips said on joining the team, "As long as I'm on the same team with Big Frank, I don't see me losing too many fights." So everything was going great, right? Phillips was on the White Sox, he was happy to be there, and was showing no signs of slowing down. However, even though Phillips was supposed to be the key piece in this completely revamped outfield, where all 3 starters were projected to be different from the starters from 1995, things didn't quite work out that way. Because just 6 weeks after signing a 2-year, $3.6 million contract, Phillips decided to hang it up. Phillips missed practice on Friday, February 23rd, due to coming down with the flu, and then missed practice the following day to attend to family matters. Keep in mind that Phillips lived in Arizona, residing in Scottsdale, and the White Sox held spring training in Arizona, so it was extremely easy for Phillips to be around his family whenever possible. And something must have happened over that weekend, because after that brief time away, Phillips said that he couldn't do it anymore. As White Sox general manager Ron Schuler said on Phillips, he really thought about it, and right now, his family is more important than baseball. "I sensed something was wrong, but I was hopeful that he would work things out at home. I even offered to fly out to Scottsdale and talk to him about it, but he said, 'Don't bother. I will not make a trade to acquire a replacement, but I have to see what happens later in camp.'" Seems like Phillips had made up his mind, and nothing was going to change his decision whatsoever. Which raises the question, why did Phillips walk away? Well, as Angels designated hitter Chili Davis, who was a close friend and living near Phillips, said on Phillips and his decision, the one thing he stressed was that he wasn't retiring for a lack of love for the game. He still enjoys the game and worked his butt off this winter, but his family was more important. He said he would rather spend time with his family than play the game and be bitter about it. Apparently, there were some issues with Phillips and his marriage that he needed to attend to, and that was the reason that he decided to walk away. As Ron Schuler later said, an earlier marriage didn't work out, and he doesn't want to go through that again. He told me that his 10-year-old daughter was crying with happiness when he told her that he was retiring. Schuler also left the door open if Phillips wanted to come back, but said that he wasn't mad whatsoever about Phillips retiring after signing the contract, saying he completely understood the decision by saying, "It's not easy for guys to walk away." And in Tony's case, he's coming off of a career year and has a great contract. However, I'd be more shocked if he was 31 or 32. He's had a great career. But just like that, the long, storied, and interesting career of Tony Phillips was done. He was hanging up the cleats and calling it a day to spend more time with his family. Want to know how long that retirement lasted? Want to know how long he stayed out of baseball for? 1 day. 1 freaking day. Because after scaring everyone with this news and announcing to the world that he was no longer going to be a Major League Baseball player, he changed his mind and said, "Change your plans. I'm coming back."
So, you know what? I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving.
Yep, turns out, as you've probably been able to tell from these highlights of him with the White Sox, as well as what I said in the intro, Tony Phillips was going to come back, ending one of the quickest retirements in MLB history. because on the night of Wednesday, February 27th, Phillips phoned Schuler and said that he made a mistake and would like to rejoin the team. This retirement was so quick that a lot of newspapers published on February 28th that Phillips had retired, even though he was back. As Schuler said, he went back and talked to his wife and daughter. He called me, said he thought it over, and said there was no way he could give up baseball now. I'm elated, because I knew that deep in my heart, Tony still wants to play. Along with his family persuading him to play again, pitcher Dave Stewart and San Francisco Giants manager Dusty Baker also spoke with him and told him to not give up the game just yet. White Sox manager Terry Bevington welcomed him back with open arms, saying, "I'm happy he's going to be back with us," as the team did not fine him or punish him in any capacity. Just like that, after one day, the man who was third in the AL in walks the previous year and fourth in runs scored was back in business. Not everyone felt this way, as while Bevington said, "He doesn't owe me an apology, this was family, I'm just glad to have him back," shortstop Ozzie Guillen thought otherwise, saying, "He has to get the respect of his teammates. I can't just go to Venezuela and say I have family problems and then come back later for the game." Still, getting respect wouldn't be a problem. As Phillips said on his return, "It's great to be back. You have to be in the right frame of mind to play this game. And when I left, I didn't have my mind completely on baseball." And despite the one-day retirement, Phillips picked up right where he left off, as in 1996, he had another exceptional year. He increased his batting average from .261 to .277. He increased his number of hits from 137 to 161. He increased his RBI from 61 to 63. He still stole 13 bases. He increased his on-base percentage from .394 to .404. And he ended the year with 135 walks, leading the American League in this category. Even though the White Sox missed the playoffs in 1996, they went from a team with a losing record to a team with an 85-77 record, just 3 games back of the Baltimore Orioles for that wildcard spot. And you can bet your bottom dollar that a big reason why they were so competitive and made that mid-season turnaround was because of the great play of Tony Phillips, who would end up playing a few more seasons in the majors before finally calling it quits after the 1999 season, playing an additional 4 seasons after he initially said he was done forever. Tony Phillips was quite the ball player, and was quite the character, known for getting on base, and known for getting into his fair share of fights. But sometimes, first impressions mean everything, and if you're a fan of the White Sox, you might best remember Phillips not for any of that, but rather for his bizarre one-day retirement. Hypothetically, if you took the world's longest flight, by the time you boarded, Phillips was a member of the White Sox, and by the time you landed, Phillips was a member of the White Sox, and you wouldn't have thought anything of it, not realizing that he retired and then came back in the blink of an eye. Because in 1996, Tony Phillips had what has to be one of the most bizarre retirement sagas, not just in the history of the Chicago White Sox, but in the history of Major League Baseball.
Get your official Jaguar Gear 9 merchandise by going to jj9shop.com, and be sure to like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel out a lot. Join me every Wednesday night where we'll play NFL Trivia for cash prizes at 9 p.m. Eastern over on Twitch. To learn more about the history of college football, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 8. To learn more about the history of Major League Baseball, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 7. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.